This episode of xCogTV is brought to you by Kobe Productions.
Welcome to today's episode of xCogTV. And today we have Christine Gaspar with us in the studio, and I am remote on Google Hangouts. And Christine is visiting us to talk to us today about cryonics, a very interesting topic, lots of great questions to discuss. And so just a little background on Christine. She's a registered nurse who specializes in emergency medicine. She is a member of the Cryonics Institute and an associate member of the Alcor Life Extension Foundation. And Christine, you are the president of the Cryonics Society of Canada. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure to speak with you, and thanks for coming into the studio today. And so I thought, you know, just for new folks who would be watching this and come across this on YouTube or whatnot, I think it would be important to define a few things about specific wording and whatnot. So from your perspective, what is cryonics? And last week in the studio we had a group of transhumanists, and we were speaking with them. And when looking online, there appears to be a lot of crossover between the two, or discussion between folks who identify as transhumanist or cryonics. And I was just wondering, do they have similar messages to share, but just different ways to get there, so to speak? Could you maybe give us a bit of background from your perspective of the difference between both, or how they complement each other?
Sure. Cryonics is the cooling of a person when they're pronounced legally dead, in the hopes that future medicine will be able to revive them in the future and fix whatever killed them today. It is quite literally an ambulance to the future. Cryonics isn't really a crossover with transhumanism. It's a tool. It's a tool within a transhuman ordinance in order to accomplish transhuman goals, which is extended life, and overcoming death, overcoming illness, and transcending our boundaries.
Okay. All right. So just to clarify then, that's actually, I appreciate you explaining it that way, because I didn't realize it that way as well. So transhumanism being the extension of our lives, cryonics being one of the possible tools that allows that extension of our lives.
Well, transhuman is broader than that. Transhumanism is about human beings surpassing their natural limits with technology. And one of the key themes within transhumanism is radical life extension. Having said that, there's always the bus that could hit you tomorrow. And therein comes cryonics. Cryonics is the insurance policy, so to say, that can protect you if your life extension plans fail. It's there to be able to be your plan B.
Okay. All right. So then, and one other word that had popped up for me frequently, and you had mentioned to me otherwise another time, is that I was saying cryogenics. So maybe if you could just, for the new person watching, I think cryogenics probably comes up a lot because that's what's in all the sci-fi movies. Could you just...
It sounds like a cooler word, actually, but cryogenics is the study of low temperatures in physics on materials, whereas cryonics is specific to cooling a human being or a pet or animal in the hopes of future revival. So it's a specific school of thought, whereas cryogenics is a broader category of dealing with cold temperatures and the physics involved with that.
Okay, all right. So, and then for the lay person, it's sort of all of those science fiction type movies where they see, I forget the one that Stallone was in and Schwarzenegger, where they're frozen, and then in the future they unfreeze them, and suddenly this person is now alive in a future time. So that's literally from a simplistic view. There's a movie example of what we're looking at: freezing people and then reviving them at a future time with full function, cognitive, motor skill, everything intact is the hope, I'm assuming.
Well, that is the goal. I mean, if you think back to pre-1950, before we invented CPR, a person who'd fall to the ground in cardiac arrest was dead, and there was nothing that anyone could do to save them. We know now what we didn't know then. We know how to repair certain things that were unrepairable 10 years ago, 20 years ago, etc. Whereas we know, should science progress in the same direction that it's going now, that there will be things in the future that can be repaired that cannot be today. And by cryopreserving a person, you're putting them in a state of suspended animation. You're essentially putting them on hold in order to allow future medicine an opportunity to repair what could not be repaired today.
Okay. Actually, I really liked that example you just gave of that person in the 50s dropping on the sidewalk. I think that puts it in good perspective. And I just learned, just found out a few weeks ago, in fact, there's a what we knew as CPR even 10, 20 years ago, there's now the new version of that, where they're now teaching people not to do AR, so mouth-to-mouth and compressions. They're saying just do chest compressions. That's what matters most to keep the blood flowing, to keep the brain alive, to keep all of the cells active. You do that, and that is a much higher percentage of survival with full function than doing what medical science was teaching us to do in the last 20 years previous. So it's very interesting to see how these things change very quickly about what our ideas about what is best for helping preserve or extend life until medical assistance can be achieved.
And you don't even have to talk about time frames. If I was to suffer cardiac arrest in the back field of my house, which is 100 acres large, and there's no telephone, there's no paramedic there, even though all of the best technology would be available to me to bring me back, if I don't have access to that technology, it doesn't do me any good. And so when you look at medicine today, it's very inconsistent. You can have someone, and I can say this to you from my practice as a nurse, a person can end up in one emergency department or a different one, and they can get very different care depending on the doctor's skills, the hospital's abilities, how busy it is. So we're not just looking at time frames, we're also looking at the variability of care that is available to the individual because of real-world logistics and constraints. So this really, when you think about putting someone in suspended animation, I don't think that it is such science fiction as people actually think it is. It's halting the damage. It's saying, you know, I'm going to cool this person, I'm going to prevent any further damage, and then just wait. And it doesn't matter at that point how long that person has to wait. Once the technology exists to repair them and to bring them back, and not to bring them back as a 90-year-old or a 100-year-old decrepit, ill person, but to bring them back in reasonable health, then they can be successfully revived.
Okay, you made an excellent point there. That concept, when I think a lot of people out there, when they think about living longer or you know, being revived after the fact, I know from chatting with just friends and family members, some people have the perspective of, well, geez, why would I want to live longer? Look at how poor quality of life is when you're older, because in their mind's eye, they're imagining the state of 70s or 80s in a nursing home and not being mobile. It sounds like what we're talking about here is that other version of where a person is able to extend their life in a healthful, with full cognitive processing, physical abilities, and to have all of those things available. So it's not that we're talking about, you know, being older and not being able to function, but being able to have the younger, the active younger version of ourselves and extend that indefinitely into the future. Is that correct?
In proof of concept, the technology that will be required to repair the damage done by the cooling process, by the preservation process, by the dying process, by the illness, by the age of the person, in proof of concept, those things will require the same technology to repair. And so there really is no short-term goal of bringing a person back as quickly as possible. It's bringing them back when we can make things right, when we can make them healthy, and we can restore them to some sort of vigor and valuable life.
Okay. So that actually leads us into our next question is, why are you interested in and wanting to discuss cryonics in a public forum, and the work that you're doing with the Cryonics Society of Canada? It sounds like there's a bigger principle there, a bigger job to do in terms of, you mentioned earlier, medical standards, different doctors with different skill sets and whatnot, bringing all of that under a common umbrella of knowledge to advance those things. And then, what is your personal why that got you to this point?
I think my personal why has taken me to nursing, and it's taken me to cryonics and an interest in science and what science is capable of, in the sense that I just do not want to end. And I know that that may not be a realistic goal, but it's a human goal. It's been a human goal for as long as we've written stories. I don't want to see my family end. And I know that cryonics is a very young industry, and I know that it's going to take people to develop it and to actually create the pioneering work that will be required to actually successfully bring people back. So, I mean, it's personal. I've signed up my family. I'm signed up. I cryopreserved my cat last year because, she was the first to go. I speak of this not only because it interests me intellectually, but because I really, really, truly believe that this is our best chance. In absence of life extension technology preventing us from dying in the first place, which may or may not happen. It's difficult to tell, but it won't happen necessarily in my dad's lifetime or even in mine. And so until they can think of a better way of keeping me or giving me that chance to live longer, I'm going to stay with cryonics, and I'm going to do everything I can to make my chances as good as possible. And that includes advocacy, that includes getting in front of people and spreading the information so that more people are aware of it. More people means more support. More people means more ideas and more directions that we can go in so that we can realize this goal. And that's why I'm here.
Hey, we hope that you and the 3 different parts of your brain found this interview to be thought-provoking, stimulating, and perhaps even irritating if you're working on growing yourself. If you have suggestions for interview topics, comments about specific videos, or would just like to reach out and say, hey, back at us, please connect with us at www.xCogTV.com. Again, that's www.xCogTV.com. This episode of xCogTV has been segmented into parts that will be published once the post-production editing work is complete for each part. So, subscribe now to the xCogTV channel. And additionally, in order to be notified of each new video upload, please make sure that you click the little gear ring icon beside the subscribed button and tick the box for send me updates. Be sure to save your settings, and then when we upload the next part of the video, you'll instantly get an email notification to let you know that the video is available for you to watch. If you enjoy our interviews and content, please tell your friends about us and send them a link so they can check us out too. And for those of you who took the extra 88 seconds to listen this far, thank you for listening to and watching xCogTV, where it's our passion to provide ideas and information that will make your neural synapses love, dance, jizz, vomit, or even melt down in childlike anger. Are we clear?